Imagine for a moment that a single green plant, one that grows freely from the earth, has the power to alter your mind, shift your perception of reality, and even open hidden doors to realms of spirituality that organized religion has tried for centuries to suppress. This is not myth, this is not fantasy, this is cannabis, or as most people know it, weed. And before you roll your eyes and think this is just another stoner story, let me warn you, what you are about to hear may forever change how you see not just marijuana, but human consciousness itself. Because the relationship between weed and spirituality is far older, far deeper, and far more revolutionary than most people realize, and once you understand it, you'll never look at this plant the same way again for thousands of years. Civilizations across the world saw cannabis not as a drug, but as a sacred key, a gateway into states of awareness that connected human beings to the divine. In ancient India, cannabis was associated with Lord Shiva, the destroyer and the transformer, the god of meditation and transcendence. Yogis and sadhus consumed it and bang a drink made with cannabis leaves to quiet the chatter of the mind and slip into deeper states of meditation. In China, the earliest Taoist shamans used cannabis incense in their rituals, believing it carried prayers up to the heavens. In the Middle East, Sufi mystics turned to cannabis to experience divine ecstasy, a state where the soul dissolves and only God remains. And yet, in the modern world, the story of weed has been rewritten. Instead of a spiritual tool, it has been painted as a dangerous substance, associated with laziness, crime, or corruption of youth. But ask yourself, why did ancient civilizations which built some of the greatest spiritual traditions in history see cannabis as sacred while modern governments see it as criminal? Is it possible that the truth about cannabis and its spiritual power has been hidden because it offers something no institution can control: freedom of the mind? You see, cannabis doesn't just intoxicate the body, it shifts perception. It loosens the rigid grip of the ego. It bends time and space in your awareness. It takes you out of the mechanical routine of thought and drops you, sometimes gently and sometimes explosively, into the raw immediacy of now. And in that now, something incredible happens. You begin to see patterns, synchronicities, connections, the veil between the physical and the spiritual thins. Suddenly, music feels divine, art becomes alive, silence becomes meaningful, and your own thoughts take on dimensions you never noticed before. And this is exactly why so many seekers, mystics, and visionaries have turned to weed as a spiritual companion. Think about it, if meditation is the art of stilling the mind, and prayer is the art of opening the heart, then cannabis is the art of dissolving the boundaries between them. It slows you down enough to notice what you usually ignore. It magnifies emotions you usually suppress, and it reminds you, in a world of noise and distraction, that your consciousness itself is the greatest mystery you will ever encounter. But here's where it gets deeper. Cannabis doesn't just make you high. It interacts with something inside your body called the endocannabinoid system, a network of receptors that influences mood, memory, pain, and perception. Scientists discovered this system only in the 1990s, but ancient shamans somehow knew its effects long before. When THC, the active compound in cannabis, binds to these receptors, it doesn't just produce euphoria. It produces altered states of consciousness that parallel mystical experiences described in sacred texts. Feelings of unity, timelessness, dissolution of self, a sense of being one with all existence. And isn't that what spirituality has always promised? Religions say God is everywhere. Cannabis whispers, look closely and you'll see it. Religions say the soul is infinite. Cannabis shows you how infinity feels, even if only for a fleeting hour. Religions say heaven is above. Cannabis laughs and reminds you heaven is within. Now, don't mistake this for blind glorification. Cannabis is not a magic pill. It does not automatically make you spiritual. It can distract as much as it can enlighten. It can dull the mind, if abused, just as it can awaken it, if respected. And that is the key word here, respect. Ancient traditions didn't use weed casually. They used it with intention, with ritual, with reverence. They treated it not as an escape, but as a teacher that could guide them into dimensions of the self they couldn't access otherwise. And that's where the modern world has gone wrong. We consume cannabis like fast food, mindlessly, excessively, chasing only pleasure. But when approached as a spiritual ally, this plant reveals its true power. Imagine lighting a candle, sitting in silence, inhaling cannabis, not to escape but to enter your own soul, to face your own shadows, to ask your own questions. The answers it gives are not always easy. Sometimes it magnifies your fears, sometimes your regrets. But often, it shows you beauty in the ordinary. It shows you that you are alive, that existence itself is a miracle. And in that awareness, spirituality stops being an idea and becomes an experience. This is why many artists, poets, and visionaries throughout history have quietly turned to cannabis. From jazz musicians who spoke of it unlocking rhythm and flow, to writers who claimed it helped them tap into hidden creativity, to mystics who used it to slip into trance-like devotion. Cannabis has always been there, in the shadows of human culture, fueling spiritual revolutions. while society pretended it was nothing more than smoke. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Governments knew. They knew cannabis wasn't just a plant. They knew it could awaken a generation. In the 1960s, when young people in America began smoking weed in masses, something terrifying happened to the establishment. Those young people began questioning authority. They questioned war. They questioned capitalism. They questioned the system itself. Because cannabis doesn't just calm you, it makes you curious. It makes you wonder why things are the way they are. It sparks rebellion, not through violence, but through awareness. And that awareness is dangerous to any power that survives on blind obedience. So they demonized it. They made it illegal. They called it a threat. But the truth is, cannabis threatens only one thing: control. It threatens the control of governments, religions, and corporations over your mind. Because once you taste that state of expanded awareness, once you realize that divinity can be felt within your own consciousness without stepping into a church or obeying a dogma, you can't be controlled the same way again. But the question is, what do you do with this plant? Do you use it to numb yourself, or to wake yourself up? Do you use it as an escape from reality, or as a magnifying glass into reality? Because cannabis will reflect you back to yourself. If you are restless, it may amplify your restlessness. If you are at peace, it may deepen your peace. If you are open, it may show you things that change your life forever. Imagine for a moment, you take a deep breath, close your eyes, and let the plant guide you. Suddenly you feel the interconnectedness of all life. You feel the breath of the earth in your lungs, the rhythm of the universe in your heartbeat. You feel like every atom in your body is made of stardust. And guess what? Science confirms it is. That's not hallucination. That's revelation. Cannabis simply opened your eyes to what was always there. And this is where the plant becomes sacred again. Not because it gives you visions, not because it makes you laugh or relax, but because it reminds you of truth. The truth that you are not separate from the world. The truth that the divine is not an old man in the sky, but the pulse of life that runs through everything. The truth that spirituality is not a belief, but an experience. This is the reason people say cannabis makes music sound better. Food tastes richer. Conversations feel deeper. It's not an illusion, it's attention. Cannabis pulls your attention into the present moment so fully that you stop living in yesterday or tomorrow, and you finally feel alive right now. And in that state, every little detail of existence glows with significance. That is spirituality in action. Of course, skeptics will argue, this is just chemical trickery, just neurons misfiring, just brain chemistry. But even if that's true, ask yourself, isn't every mystical experience, every vision, every prayer, every feeling of divine connection also mediated through brain chemistry? If God speaks to you in a dream, does that dream lose meaning because it's just neurons firing? No. The experience is real because it feels real, because it changes you, because it awakens something inside you. And cannabis has been doing exactly that for humanity for thousands of years. So here we are, a plant older than civilization, demonized in modern times, yet still carrying the same sacred secret, that within the folds of your own consciousness lies the infinite. The mystics knew it. The shamans knew it. And now, maybe you are beginning to know it too. Cannabis is not the destination. It's not enlightenment in a joint. But it can be the spark, the reminder, the guide that whispers, look within, the universe is waiting, before you leave. Remember, this video might have opened your mind, but there are countless other truths still hidden in history, spirituality, and human consciousness. If you want to keep exploring them with us, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and join this journey. Because trust me, the videos coming next, you don't want to miss them.